3 years ago, I worked the night shift at a mid-sized grocery store just outside of Reno. It was a 24-hour place, but we barely had any customers between midnight and 5 a.m. Most of the time, it was just me and one other guy, Ron, the overnight stalker. There was a third floor, technically, not open to the public, just storage, mostly unused shelves, broken fixtures, and a few old freezers. I only had to go up there for inventory once a week, usually on Tuesday nights. It always creeped me out. The elevator took forever, and the lighting up there was dim and flickered constantly like it hadn't been upgraded since the 80s. This story happened on one of those Tuesdays. It was around 1:40 a.m. when I headed up. Ron was busy breaking down boxes in the back. I told him I'd be a while and grabbed the elevator key. The moment those doors opened on the third floor, I regretted coming alone. There was that smell again, like wet cardboard and something faintly metallic. It always hung in the air up there, no matter how many times they claimed to clean it. I walked to the back corner where the storage logs were kept, scanning the dusty shelves along the way. As I was noting down the serial numbers on a broken ice cream freezer, I heard what sounded like a footstep behind me. Just one. I turned quickly. No one. I stood still, listening. The air was completely still, except for the low hum of a broken fluorescent light near the middle of the room. Then I noticed something. One of the rolling ladders, those heavy metal ones we used to reach the top shelves, had moved. I was sure of it. It had been in the far corner when I came up. Now it was about 10 feet closer. I hadn't touched it. I slowly backed away, deciding I'd done enough inventory for the night. I radioed Ron, told him I was coming back down. No response. That wasn't unusual. The signal on the third floor was weak, but when I got to the elevator, the button didn't respond. Dead. I pressed again, and again. Nothing. I started walking toward the stairwell on the far end when the lights flickered and went out completely. Pitch black. I froze. My phone flashlight barely lit more than a few feet, but I turned it on and kept walking. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps this time. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Coming from somewhere to my left, just beyond the shelves. I whispered Ron's name, even though I knew it couldn't be him. No answer. I moved faster now, not running, but close. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, I reached the stairwell door, yanked it open, and sprinted down 2 flights without looking back. When I burst into the stockroom, Ron was sitting on a crate, earphones in, eating chips. He looked up casually. "Everything good?" I didn't know what to say. I nodded, pretending nothing had happened, but I never went back up there alone again. A few days later, I mentioned the weird experience to an older guy on the morning shift. He raised an eyebrow and said, "You didn't hear about the incident?" Couple years back, a former employee got caught sleeping up there for weeks, got fired after they found a mattress stashed behind the shelving. Management swore no one else had keys, but weird things kept happening. Stuff moving, food missing. They eventually stopped using that floor. I asked him why no one mentioned it before. He shrugged. Everyone just figured if you made it through your first inventory shift alone, you were good. I never felt good after that. I transferred stores 2 months later. To this day, the idea of being on that third floor, alone, still makes my skin crawl. I used to work as a night custodian in a small-town medical clinic. It wasn't anything fancy, 4 patient rooms, 2 offices, a reception area, and a storage basement. The place closed to the public at 6 p.m., but my shift ran from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., 5 nights a week. I was the only one there. Always. That job taught me something. Silence can be unnerving, especially in a place meant to be full of life. One Thursday night, about 2 months into the job, I started noticing little things. Not dramatic, just off. A door that was open, even though I'd just closed it. A gurney slightly moved from its usual spot. At first, I chalked it up to my memory. It was late, I was tired, no big deal. But then things escalated. Around 2:30 a.m., I was mopping the floor near exam room 3. The lights were motion activated, but I had manually flipped the switches so the place would stay lit. As I worked, the lights in room 3 suddenly went off. I stood still, waiting for them to come back on, but they didn't. Then I heard it, something lightly tapping the examination bed in that room. 3 taps, deliberate, slow. I should have walked away, I know that. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door and flipped the switch. The lights came on. Nothing was there. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have, just staring at the room. Everything looked normal. I finally shook it off and got back to work. 15 minutes later, I was taking out trash bags to the back dumpster. As I stepped into the alley behind the clinic, I noticed that the security light above the door was out. It always stayed on. That was the first time I'd ever seen it fail. While dumping the bags, I heard the door click shut behind me. No big deal. It locked automatically, and I had keys. I reached into my back pocket. Empty. I checked all my pockets. No keys. I knew I'd had them when I came out. I always double-checked. Heart pounding, I knocked on the door out of instinct. No one was going to answer, obviously. I was alone. I circled around to the front entrance, hoping maybe I'd left that one unlocked by mistake. As I approached, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. The lights inside the lobby were flickering. Not flashing randomly, flickering in a pattern. On for 3 seconds. Office on for 2 seconds. Office over and over. It was like a signal. I backed away and reached for my phone. No service. I don't mean 1 bar, I mean nothing. I walked to the edge of the lot, still no signal. That had never happened before. I waited by the front door until the lights stopped flickering. Then I tried the handle. Unlocked. I stepped inside, slowly. The clinic was dead silent again. My keys were lying on the front desk. I didn't put them there. That night, I stayed in the break room, lights on, back to the wall, holding the only thing I had, my mop handle, like it was a weapon. I waited for sunrise. Didn't move. Didn't sleep. In the morning, I reported the electrical issues. The supervisor came by to check the circuits. Everything looked fine. No problems with the breakers, no outages in the area. I didn't tell them the full story. I wasn't ready to sound insane. Over the next few nights, I kept my phone charged, my keys clipped to my belt, and never took out the trash without propping the door. Nothing else major happened for a while, just enough little things to keep me on edge. One night, I came in to find every light in the building already on. I never left them that way. That was the last shift I worked. Maybe there was someone messing with me. Maybe someone had a key. Maybe I was sleep deprived and my mind was playing tricks. But when you're in a building meant for people and you feel like you're the only one who shouldn't be there, that fear sticks with you. Every time I drive past that clinic now, I keep my eyes on the windows, just in case someone's looking back. I used to work nights at a wholesale warehouse on the outskirts of Phoenix. It wasn't a glamorous job, mostly moving pallets, unloading trucks, and scanning inventory. But the pay was decent, and I didn't mind the quiet. Most nights, it was just me and one forklift operator, Miguel, who stuck to the far side of the building. My zone was the back half near the loading dock, which had 5 massive bay doors and a small break room. The warehouse was huge, dark in all the unused corners, and echoey as hell. You could drop a wrench on the other side of the floor and hear it clear as day. I never liked the silence, but I got used to it, until one night in November. It was a little after 3 a.m. I remember because I was doing my 3rd scan of the outgoing orders, and I just logged a miscount on one of the shrink-wrapped pallets. I was standing near bay door 4, clipboard in hand, when I heard what sounded like 3 sharp knocks from the other side of the roll-up door. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. It wasn't wind. It wasn't shifting metal. It was knuckles. Deliberate. The dock doors didn't have handles on the outside. There was no reason anyone would be out there, especially not at 3 in the morning. I leaned closer to the door, trying to listen. Nothing. I figured maybe it was Miguel messing around. He had a messed up sense of humor, and he liked to sneak up and scare the new guys. But when I walked over to the side window and peeked out at the loading area, it was empty. No trucks, no people, just a flickering halogen light and a single dumpster. I called out on the radio, "Miguel, you near the back dock?" Static. Then, "Nah, still in zone 2. What's up?" I paused. Thought I heard something. It's nothing. I didn't want to sound jumpy. I went back to work, but I kept glancing toward the doors every few minutes, just in case. 10 minutes later, I was in the break room making coffee when I heard the same knock, knock, knock. This time, it was softer, slower, from the back entrance. I stepped into the hall and saw the doorknob twitch slightly. Just once. A tiny casual jiggle, like someone testing it. I walked up quietly, leaned in close to the steel door, and held my breath. And then, whoever was outside whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice was right on the other side. Calm, low, male. I stepped back fast and locked the deadbolt. Radioed Miguel again. "Hey, can you come to the break area?" Something weird's going on. He said he was on his way. I waited by the door, holding a box cutter. Not the smartest choice, but it's all I had. 5 minutes went by. Then 10. No Miguel. I tried the radio again. "You close?" No answer. I left the break room and stepped into the main warehouse aisle. All the overhead lights were on timers. They were supposed to stay on until sunrise, but half of them had gone out. My footsteps echoed down the concrete corridor. I walked quickly toward Zone 2. That's when I noticed one of the forklifts, Miguel's, parked, still running, but no one in sight. I looked around the racks and pallets, calling his name. Nothing. I checked the restroom. Empty. I checked his usual inventory tablet. Sitting on the floor, screen still on. The app showed the last scan done at 3:08 a.m. He just disappeared. I started walking back toward my station when I noticed something strange near bay door 4. A boot print. Not Miguel's steel toes. This one was smaller, worn tread. Looked wet, like someone had just stepped through water. There were more prints leading from the door and vanishing halfway across the floor. No exit, no smudging. They just stopped. I grabbed my phone to call my supervisor. No signal. That was weird. I'd always had at least 2 bars in the warehouse. I walked outside through the front office, dialed again. Call failed. I stood out there in the cold, trying to make sense of things. A few minutes later, the front door creaked open behind me. It was Miguel. His face was pale, and he looked shaken. I asked him where he'd gone, and he said something that made my blood run cold. He told me he'd been trying to find me. Said he got a radio call from my number, clear as day, asking him to come check out the storage cages in the East Wing. He went there, found the lights off, and someone, he swore it was me, walking between the shelves. But when he followed, the person turned a corner and vanished. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. We both stood outside for a while, not saying much. Eventually, we went back in together, did one last check of the building, and left everything for the morning crew. We never found out what happened that night. Security footage was inconclusive, according to management. The area near Bay Door 4 was missing 2 hours of video. Just skipped from 2:53 to 4:57 a.m. I transferred to a daytime shift 2 weeks later. Miguel quit entirely. I don't tell this story often because people think it's just stress or night shift paranoia. But if you've ever worked alone in a place that's supposed to be empty and heard someone knocking from the other side of a door that no one should be able to reach, you know that fear stays with you. No ghosts, no monsters, just a stranger who knew exactly where we were